So today we're going to talk about the sense of self. That ultimately, that's the topic for the day: who we are or who we feel ourselves to be. Um, I would say that through most of our life, we feel like there's a lack of something or something missing, and it's that feeling of something missing that drives us to do all of the things that we do. And eventually it tends to bring us to something like a meditation practice because we feel that maybe that will fill this hole, and at least that's a much more rational choice. But up to then, we might have tried to fill it with I don't know, material things. There's this sense that something's missing in life, or we feel incomplete. So we get that slight feeling of relief. Let's imagine we order something online, and then it turns up through the post a couple of days later or the next day. And when it appears in the post and you unwrap it, there's this brief moment of like respite where you feel somehow like you're a little bit more complete, but before you know it, that's past and gone again. Yeah. Um, or it might be something metaphysical, not a physical thing, but they often say that because we don't really know who we are or what we are, if you like, we're constantly seeking validation from everybody else, which is why we feel so concerned about what other people think of us, whether they think well of us or not, whether they approve of us or not, because we're not secure in our own understanding of. I don't like to say who we are because that seems like it needs to find an identity, but we're not secure in our understanding of what we are. Yeah, and because we're not secure in that, we need this constant validation or confirming from other people. Um, so that tends to drive us through our lives. And there's a teacher who's dead now called Ramana Maharshi, and he talked about that a lot as a metaphor or analogy. I never know which one's which, but he used was this idea of a person sitting under a tree. Yeah, so there's a tree in a very hot desert, and this person sits under the tree in shelter. So they're in the shade, and it's calm under there, and it's cool and it's peaceful. But there's always this just niggling thought or feeling that there's something missing and there's something better out there in the desert. So they repeatedly go out into the desert looking for it again. And of course, they get burnt and they get hot and they end up frustrated. So they retreat back underneath the tree, and again, it feels calm and peaceful and still and cool. But after a certain amount of time, they forget that and off they go looking again because it feels like something's missing. And he talks about that as being like the madness of mankind. That rather than just stay with the peace that we know exists, we do this bouncing sort of thing. So we're bouncing out and in all the time. We keep leaving the shade of the tree and then coming back rather than just staying where it's peaceful and it's cool and it's calm. So today we're going to explore this idea that what we are is always there and we know it already, we've just forgotten it. We don't really have to keep going out looking for it. This is quite an important point. We just need to recognize it as already being here. Simple as that. So a bit like what I often been talking about recently about it's just below the surface. You just need to scratch the surface and it's there. We don't need to dive deep looking for this thing. So anyway, as ever, that's my 4 minutes. Maybe I might have done 5 today, but it make more sense through the practice. So make sure you're comfortable. I just like to set up what we're doing and why. If not, we just dive into a practice apropos of nothing, and it has no basis or relevance. So you know why we're doing this practice. So we start as ever just by finding some solid ground underneath us, because if not, then we can get washed and blown around anywhere. So to find this solid ground, we have to just feel as if anyway that we exert some effort. Just a few moments of effort just to establish where we are, or when we are, if you like. So to be present. You might use your breath. You can use anything. If you were religious, you'd use a prayer. Anything works if it works for you. Just to establish a sense of being present, of being grounded. Might take a few slow breaths. And it's at this time that we often notice how jumpy our internal state is, bouncing around. But we just steady ourselves with this focus. And then maybe just take a few moments just to soften the body. If it feels as if you're clinging tightly or holding on, it might be that you can just allow that to soften a little, as much as you feel safe to do so. Maybe just letting your shoulders fall towards the floor, your jaw to relax, your tongue to relax. We're just knowing that we don't have to try too hard. And that we're perfectly safe right now. There's nothing that can touch us. We don't have to be defensive or ready for action. So from this quite narrow, tight focus that you've established, maybe on your breath or maybe on something else, just start to let that melt or dissolve gradually outwards. So it starts to take in or notice more and more of your experience right now. It might radiate outwards through your physical body. Noticing the infinite change in sensations. And the more you soften the body and the focus, the more sensations you notice coming and going. You don't need to do anything to be aware of those sensations. There's no effort involved in being aware of them. You're not seeking or looking for any particular experience. Just allowing whatever experience appears to be there. And when the experience passes away, there's no clinging to it. It just effortlessly leaves. So that might expand outwards even further from your body to the experiences of your other senses. Sounds come and go. Smells. Even what you can see behind your eyelids, changing colours, patterns. And in some traditions, thoughts, or the thinking mind is described as another sense. So thoughts, feelings, emotions arise. We don't call them up. And they pass away. We don't need to push them away. So there's just this sense or awareness of all experience flowing through. You don't know, you can't predict what the next thought will be. Or when the next sound will appear. Or what the next sensation in your body will be. It's all a complete mystery. not searching, when we're not looking for something that's missing, you might feel this deep peace of how simple it is just allowing the mystery to unfold. We don't need to know why the next thought appears. We don't need to know what that thought will be. We don't need to do anything. Simply be aware, or to be the awareness, if you prefer. So without going to thought, just notice or contemplate, or maybe just feel, is there a limit to awareness? Is there any boundary to where awareness begins and ends? Don't confuse that with a limit to your senses. Is there any limit to what can be known? Can you find an end point? Can you notice a limitless, infinite feeling? Can you stop being aware? Is there anything you can do to prevent yourself from being aware or being awareness? You can try as hard as you like to stop being aware. It's not even like thinking, where we can block thoughts or block thinking with a serious amount of effort. But there's nothing that we can seem to do that can stop or inhibit awareness in any way. Even if we're trying, there's still the awareness of trying to stop it. Anything else we can stop thinking, can cover our ears, stop hearing, close our eyes, stop seeing, keep our body still, stop moving. The one thing that we can't stop is being aware or knowing. And if you want to go to thought, you could probably make a good case for arguing that if we can't stop it in any way, if we can't inhibit it, then it must fundamentally be the underlying thing that we are. And all that we're doing is overlooking that simplest of facts. You don't need to go looking for awareness or do anything to be aware. We can't stop ourselves from being aware. It's right in front of our face, but so obvious. That we've just forgotten. And we're searching for that peace or that completeness everywhere else except for where it already is. All we need to do is rest in the awareness itself. You can still continue to function perfectly normally, but we just don't keep coming out from under the shade of the tree back into the hot sun. So just notice your breath returning. Just an experience that might have become unrecognized. Maybe just bring in a few longer, slightly deeper breaths into your body. Being aware of those and being aware of any frustration or any thoughts that now start to bubble up. At this point, we often think, oh, I've just done a whole 25 minutes and I was daydreaming for it all. We start being aware of judgments and so on. Not needed. You're just going back out into the sun again, if that happens. Feeling some movement, maybe coming back to your limbs. Maybe taking a little stretch, rubbing your face. Whatever feels useful for you or most natural. And just whenever you're ready, you can allow your eyes to open, or you can stay where you are if you want. It's fine, you can continue. I hope that was useful. And again, I often use the word awareness. It's just fairly commonly used nowadays. I think it would have been called God in past times and all sorts of other things. But a lot of people can understand what we mean by awareness. We don't need to mystify it. But equally, it's just another word, and it won't resonate with some people. It won't click with some people. So you don't need to cling to that. You have a feeling of this thing, like knowing or awareness or just I am or I'm present. I don't need to label it. Just for the purposes of this, we do, because it'd be a really quiet meditation if not. I have nothing to say.